twisting me around. There is nothing I can do. Don't give up the light, using every last breath, escaping the long way down.
Over the years, superheroes have become a pop culture powerhouse, but none are more legendary than Batman, I would say. Since his debut all the way back in 1939, The Dark Knight has starred in countless stories across comics, films, and games. Out of all the iterations of Batman that we have gotten over the years, I have to say that the Arkham games hold a special place in my heart. Each game in Rocksteady's iconic trilogy stands out. Arkham City for its compelling story and open-world design, Arkham Knight for its refined gameplay, and Arkham Asylum for its haunting and, quite frankly, creepy atmosphere. Arkham Asylum expertly transports the players to the eerie, crumbling halls of Arkham Island, where the atmosphere is nothing short of chilling. Even while playing as Batman, I constantly found myself on edge as I navigated the Madhouse in pursuit of the wicked Joker. The game's horror elements, from the fake glitches in Scarecrow's lair to the tense showdown with Killer Croc, are iconic and unforgettable. But one element that truly captivated me were the audio tapes. These recordings delve deep into the twisted minds of some of Batman's greatest villains, adding a nice layer of psychological horror into the mix of things.
What is it that walks on 4 legs, then 2 legs, and finally 3 legs?
A human being. As a baby it crawls on 4 legs, as an adult it walks on 2, and in later years it uses a cane.
Good try. But the answer to all 3 is a baby. True, it crawls on all 4s, but cut off its legs and it can only wiggle on 2 limbs. Give it a crutch, it can hobble around on 3. You see?
This atmosphere left me craving for more stories like this. And while we have seen some pretty dark and disturbing Batman stories before, nothing quite matched the uniquely creepy vibe of Arkham Asylum. That is until I discovered the Arkham tapes. This analog horror series captures the essence of those in-game recordings, blending them with chilling visuals and top-notch voice acting. Though the visuals haven't necessarily blown me away, as we'll get into later, the series excels in building tension and staying true to these iconic characters, while also throwing in some new elements to craft its own unique story. And tonight, we are going to take a deep dive into the Arkham tapes, to explore what makes this series a hidden gem for Batman fans, such as myself. Before we start, however, I would like to highly recommend that you support the creator and check out the series for yourself, especially if you are as big a Batman fan as I am. I have the channel linked in my description below. Go show them some love. Now, with all that being said, let's take a dive into our first tape, an interview with one of Batman's greatest villains, the Joker himself. These are the Arkham tapes. Like all good analog horror, we begin by inserting a VHS into a tape player.
Hello, and welcome to Arkham Asylum. The purpose of this tape is to prepare you for your role as a psychiatrist, and equip you with tools to help our patients here.
The firfirst video of this series acts as a training tape for new employees at Arkham Asylum. giving us instructions and tools needed to help the patients of Arkham recover to the best of their abilities. The tape tells us that before we begin working, it is important to know what kind of patients we will be encountering on our shifts. To show us this, the tape begins to play an audio recording of an interview conducted by Dr. Stephen Kellerman with patient number 42540, otherwise known as the Joker. And for those wondering, yes, Dr. Stephen Kellerman was in Arkham Asylum, and Joker's patient number within that game is also the same as the one listed in the video. The same number he held in his first publication appearance all the way back in 1940, believe it or not. Just going to show that this series really is rooting itself deeply into this world while crafting its own unique story. But before I get ahead of myself, we better keep moving on. We get our first taste of some truly great voice acting between Joker and Dr. Kellerman.
So Joker, let's talk about what we started to cover in our last session. Tell me more about your childhood pet.
Ah yes, Chuckles, my goldfish. Ironically, quite a sad tale, I'm afraid. You see, when I was mere 5 years old, I was gifted him by Aunt Susie. She was quite the pompous windbag, but boy, could she make a whoopee cushion sing!
Please, Joker, try to take this seriously.
The Joker goes on to tell Dr. Kellerman a story about a pet goldfish he named Chuckles, gifted to him by his Aunt Susie. Or at least that's what he wants Dr. Kellerman to believe. The Joker gets back to his story, saying that he took care of his goldfish and even practiced a few jokes on him. One day, however, he found Chuckles dead in his tank, floating on his back. When asked about how this event made him feel, Joker says that he can't really recall what he felt. What he can recall is going to tell his parents and seeing his mother push Aunt Susie down the stairs. Dr. Kellerman says that he is sorry the Joker had to witness such a thing from an early age, and Joker fires back saying that he's not actually sorry, at least not yet. When Kellerman asks Joker what he means by this, the Joker responds by basically telling the doctor he is a fool for trusting everything he has just said to him. Dr. Kellerman says that he is only human, everybody is, and was only trying to extend a helping hand, letting Joker know that it is okay to hurt sometimes. Joker tells him that he is wrong. Not wrong that it is okay to hurt, but wrong by saying everyone is human. I'll let him explain.
Well, we're only human, Joker. I'm merely trying to extend a hand by listening. We all need to feel heard sometimes.
Wrong.
What's wrong?
That we're only human. You may be, but you just like to assume that everyone is like you deep down, Doctor.
Are you saying you're not human?
We cut to 3 a.m. on October 21st, 1992, outside the home of Dr. Stephen Kellerman. Through security footage, we wait to see something, anything, until there is a knock at the door.
I know you're in there, Doctor. Come out.
After the Joker urges the Doctor to come out, we get our first glimpse at the face of this universe's Joker, before we hear him ask, "What makes you laugh, Stephen?" We can hear screaming from Stephen in the background before a message is shown on screen reading, "No one is safe." This is where the first video of the series ends, and for me, it started off pretty strong. I usually like more visual stimuli in my analog horror experiences, but the voice acting and pretty decent tension building through the use of sound design is what showed me that there was some real potential here. And as far as the story goes for now, it can be assumed that the Joker escaped Arkham, found the house of Dr. Kellerman, and murdered him, because, well, you know, he's the Joker. One of the more interesting plot points that this series brings up is the question of the Joker even being human. And just by looking at the guy's face, I have to say, his humanity is definitely a little questionable. What really does it for me is the bright white eyes that have no pupils. I don't know, it just gives this Joker a unique and creepy look in my opinion. As for whether this Joker is actually more than human, it's hard to say at this time. For now, we are going to move on to our next tape, an interview with Killer Croc.
Here at Gotham Zoo, we have plenty of fun for the entire family. Come and see our tigers, polar bears, penguins, and so much more. With the recent addition of our reptile house, now you can experience even more safari fun. You can pet the iguanas, watch the snakes in their habitats, and feed the crocodiles.
Crocodiles. Crocodiles.
The tape begins with an ad for the Gotham City Zoo, which has just finished construction on a newly added reptile exhibit. After being told that we can feed the crocodiles, we are swiftly transitioned to our next patient interview, conducted by Dr. Kirk Langstrom, who us Batman fans know later becomes the terrifying Man-Bat after he infects himself with his own Man-Bat serum. But the video isn't about Kirk Langstrom. The tape is about Waylon Jones, otherwise known as Killer Croc. Born with a condition that closely resembles epidermolytic hyperkeratosis, Waylon Jones experienced the sad life of an outsider. His unique medical condition gave him the appearance of a crocodile, making him the subject of ridicule among many. With his birth causing the death of his mother and his father outright abandoning him afterwards, he was handed over to his alcoholic aunt, who treated him as nothing more than an animal. Through a series of events that led him into a jail cell for a murder he didn't commit, his body began to grow, along with his hatred for humanity. He was eventually released from prison, but turned to a life of crime right after, eventually making the sewers of Gotham his home. Known for being one of the most intimidating antagonists in the Batman universe, the tape, in my opinion, does him justice. Dr. Kirk Langstrom is conducting the interview under the permission of Hugo Strange, the warden of Arkham Asylum, and another iconic Batman villain. The reason for the interview is to find a way to use Waylon's blood for medical applications.
This is Dr. Kirk Langstrom at Arkham Asylum on November 15th, 1992. With the permission of Professor Hugo Strange, I'm here to conduct research with patient number 83357, Waylon Jones, alias Killer Croc. The aim of today's session is to isolate the mutagenic properties within Waylon's blood. I hope to determine if it has any medical application.
What's up, Doc? I don't get many visitors. I think most people find me offsetting.
Well, I find your condition fascinating, Waylon.
Speaking of a southern drawl that fits his Florida origins, Waylon asks what Dr. Langstrom plans on doing with his blood. He responds by telling Waylon that his blood could possibly hold the cure for many diseases, such as cancer, Alzheimer's, and even deafness. Croc laughs, saying that it is ironic, explaining that while his blood does give him immunity to most afflictions, it also gives him his hunger and cannibalistic tendencies rather than his psychosis, like Hugo Strange wants everyone to believe. Dr. Langstrom doesn't believe Croc and continues his operation, taking a sample of Waylon's blood and leaving him in the cell. After this, the video transitions to some footage that was discovered in the Gotham sewers along with human remains. Whoever took the footage seems to be lost and terrified from the sounds of their breathing. And I can't blame them, because this has got to be the most claustrophobic sewer system ever invented. They carefully walk through the sewers, searching for an exit, but they are being hunted. We can see eyes in the darkness before the camera footage experiences some glitches. Something is watching. As the cameraman explores, trying to find a way out, they see something that frightens them, and they take off running in the other direction. We can hear Croc speak to the person, taunting them.
Where you going, Oz?
Croc shows up again in an admittedly silly-looking edit as the cameraman goes prone, trying to hide from the beast. It seems to work, and the cameraman pushes forward. He comes to, somehow, an even more claustrophobic part of the tunnel, where he finds a dead end, along with some abandoned construction gear. He hears a sound behind him, and as he turns around, the footage jumps to a close-up of Croc's face, with the audio of a man screaming for his life. The tape ends with a clip of the Gotham City Zoo once again, with the same message of, "Feed the crocodiles." Honestly, besides a few editing choices that could have been handled a little bit better, the sewer footage was super tense watching the video for the first time. It did a good job of capturing the fear of being hunted down by an unstoppable predator in a claustrophobic space. And now we have the introduction of Dr. Kirk Langstrom, as well as mentions of Hugo Strange. Two more iconic foes of Batman. Hugo Strange is a given, seeing as how he is the warden of Arkham Asylum, and I don't find it strange, pun intended, that he is trying to keep Croc's blood a secret from other doctors. He is, for lack of a better term, an evil bastard, but it makes me wonder if he has a larger goal that we are unaware of at this point. Dr. Langstrom, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be taking Croc's blood too seriously, which could result in his downfall. And let me tell you, we don't have to wait too long to see this downfall happen, because our next tape is all about Dr. Langstrom and his transition into the Man-Bat.
We here at Wayne Tech Bioengineering pride ourselves on being the top provider for medical innovation here in Gotham City.
We start with an ad for Wayne Tech Bioengineering. In the Batman mythos, Wayne Tech is the largest division within the Wayne Enterprises company, owned of course by Bruce Wayne and managed by Lucius Fox. The ad states that Wayne Biotech prides itself on pushing medical innovation in Gotham City, working constantly to find cures for abnormal diseases and conditions. We are told that if we would like to learn more about Wayne Tech Bioengineering, we should visit their website, which is cut off, and this is when the audio recording of Kirk Langstrom begins, taking place on December 29th, 1992. We learn that in this universe, Dr. Langstrom actually works at Wayne Tech in the bioengineering division, which is where he has been conducting his research on the blood that he extracted from Killer Croc in the previous video. He has combined this blood with the DNA samples of a vampire bat in order to acquire their powerful hearing and echolocation abilities. His reason for doing this, as we learn through the recording, is because he is beginning to go deaf himself, and for obvious reasons, he doesn't want this to happen. He began testing with animals the very next day. He starts by introducing the compound into the nervous system of a deaf rat that he has named Dimitri. He waits for hours, but nothing seems to change. The following day, however, Dr. Langstrom enters the lab to find Dimitri has improved his hearing ability, responding to vocal commands rather than simple visual stimuli. The compound seems to be working as planned, but as we hear from the audio recording, when trying to get the green light to move ahead with the project, Bruce Wayne stated that the project seemed unethical and did not approve human trials, giving Langstrom a deadline to convince him. We hit January 1st, 1993. Langstrom has still not been approved to conduct human trials. He comes to the conclusion that he will test the compound on himself, and in the following days, he documents his downward spiral into insanity. On January 2nd, the compound is introduced into Langstrom's nervous system, and he informs his wife, Francine, that he will have to stay within Wayne Tech for the next few days, as he observes the changes the compound has on his body. January 3rd comes around, and Langstrom is happy to report that his hearing has actually improved, and that he will continue to monitor himself in the days to come to be sure that there are no side effects.
January 3rd, 1993. I'm elated. My hearing has begun to sharpen. I feel 10 years younger. will continue to remain here for self-observation until I'm absolutely sure there are no side effects.
January 4th. Langstrom says that he has prevented a disaster from occurring at Wayne Tech. With his improved hearing, he was able to make out a slight buzzing noise coming from inside the walls. After contacting security about the noise, it was discovered to be a loose wire that could have started an electrical fire within the lab. When questioned about how he was able to hear the noise, Langstrom said nothing about the compound that was slowly changing him. On January 5th, Langstrom states that Dimitri, his test rat, has experienced an increased and vicious appetite, eating twice the amount of food he eats on a daily basis. But Langstrom's hearing continues to grow more and more sharp. He says that he is able to hear people in the halls outside of his lab now, and says it is as if he is hearing their thoughts. The following day, Dimitri escapes from his cage, seemingly breaking the lock entirely. Langstrom himself has not felt the hunger yet, but he has developed a slight toothache, and has found that some of his hair is falling out. His condition worsens on January 7th as he wakes up to find his upper and lower canine teeth have fallen out, and his hearing, while continuing to improve, has come at a cost. The sounds coming from outside the lab are getting louder, causing strain on his ears.
The sound coming from outside my laboratory is almost deafening now. I've had to reinforce the lab with soundproofing materials to relieve the strain on my ears.
On January 8th, that hunger begins to set in, and Langstrom is becoming increasingly worried about his condition. And on January 9th, the hunger took over completely, causing his food supply to run dry. The hunger was so powerful that once he ended up finding his lab rat Dimitri, he couldn't resist.
I heard scuttling and discovered Dimitri behind a shelf. I could hardly restrain myself at holding the creature, alive, wriggling, and delicious. Before I knew what I was doing, I had torn into the poor creature. I found that my canines had been replaced by fangs, resembling those of a vampire bat. I would ask the help of my fellow employees, but I'm worried how they would react. Best to keep myself contained for now until I can get to the bottom of this.
Although the situation seems dire, Langstrom sounds almost calm in the recording, and does not reach out for help, wanting to find a solution himself. We skip over a day and listen to a recording on January 11th. Langstrom says that his hair is gone, and his ears seem to be changing, his evolved hearing becoming more and more discomforting. He says that he can hear his own heartbeat, and while it sounds erratic, his body feels completely normal, as if this is all natural. He says his fingernails have fallen out, and he is becoming increasingly more concerned about what is happening to him. The recording ends with him apologizing to his wife. 3 days later, the conditions keep getting worse. The sound is unbearable, the hunger is growing, and Langstrom states that he is seeing claws growing out from where his fingernails should be, and a membrane seems to be growing under his arms. The next recording takes place on January 19th, and is the final recording of Dr. Kirk Langstrom.
January 19th, 1993. I see red. I hear God. He tells me that he has forsaken me. I hunger for flesh, for blood. I can fly like the angels now. I can hear heartbeats, and their blood calls out to me. I understand now, Waylon. I can feel the hunger in my blood. I must feed.
We get our first visual representation of Man-Bat for the series, and we hear the shattering of glass as Langstrom breaks out of his lab. The video then cuts to a Gotham City news broadcast that details the reports of 7 people who were found dead, drained of their blood, and viciously mangled on the streets of Gotham. Witness accounts state that the perpetrator resembled a large bat. The broadcast plays a video sent in by an anonymous source that shows this creature climbing to the top of a church and then taking off into the sky with great speed. We are told that the police are seeking out the Batman for questioning, and then the broadcast ends. This isn't where the video ends, however. After the broadcast ends, we are shown an audio recording of Dr. Hugo Strange. He speaks about how he was asked to gather numerous interviews and footage of Arkham Asylum so that they can be compiled into training tapes for future employees. We saw this at the beginning of the Joker video. We also learned through the recording that Langstrom has been admitted into Arkham Asylum, and Hugo Strange has observed the potential of Langstrom's research as well as its dangers. He says that he will work on finding a cure for Langstrom in order to bolster his reputation for his plans to come, and that is where the video ends. In my opinion, this is one of the better videos of the series. The slow descent of Langstrom into Man-Bat was genuinely intriguing, and the actual visuals used in the video I found to be a large step up from the first two. I loved the shot of Man-Bat climbing the church just after he had spoke about flying with the angels. So far, the series has been pretty straightforward, but we got hints of a larger story being told. Hugo Strange seems to have some secret plans that at this time we are still unaware of, and we even got the mention of Batman and Bruce Wayne for the first time. Something larger is definitely at play, but we can't be sure what it is at this time. Next up, we have another iconic Batman villain.
A new experimental treatment for anger. Arkham Asylum prides itself on the treatment of its patients. This includes dozens of medications, ones widely used in the scientific community, and ones developed by us.
This video also starts with an ad, but rather than being an ad for Wayne Tech, we get an ad from the asylum itself. The ad details a new experimental treatment that will begin practice at Arkham Asylum. But what is this new treatment, you ask? Well, according to the narrator, one dose of this new treatment will eliminate a patient's feeling of anger, causing them to be less erratic and impulsive. One dose of this treatment will completely eliminate a patient's feeling of anger, causing them to be less erratic and impulsive. But with all medical ads, I mean, seriously, all of them, there are a number of side effects that come with this treatment. Small things like depression, anxiety, dizziness, or an increase in aggression and lack of empathy. So basically, this treatment might not even work. After we are told this, we are transitioned to the interview segment of the video. This time, it is a conversation between Dr. Hugo Strange and Harvey Dent. Professor Strange dates the interview to take place on February 22nd, 1993, and begins by telling us that this interview was requested by Harvey Dent in order to evaluate his psyche. Strange asks Harvey to tell him about his anger issues that he has been experiencing as of late. Harvey says that as far back as he can remember, he has always had a difficult time controlling his temper, and that he just gets so angry sometimes. Strange asks what triggers this anger, and Harvey says that whenever someone disrespects him or makes a joke at his expense, it reminds him of the high standards that were set by his father. This tracks with Harvey's origins in the comics. Christopher Dent, Harvey's father, first appeared in the definitive Two-Face origin story known as Batman: Eye of the Beholder, where he was downright abusive towards his son, beating him based on the flip of a coin. If it landed on heads, Harvey's father would beat him. If it landed on tails, he would not. The messed up part of this story is that the coin was double-sided, which meant that no matter what, Harvey was always beaten by his father. This obviously left Harvey with a plethora of mental issues, that, despite his success as Gotham's city attorney, would lead him down the path of evil, turning him into Two-Face. When Strange asks if his father beat him, Harvey denies it and says that the abuse was mainly verbal, and that every time before his anger flares up, he hears his father's voice in the back of his head. Strange says that he has something he wishes to prescribe to Dent. This is, of course, the new treatment that was mentioned at the beginning of the video. Harvey accepts the treatment, not wanting his anger to get in the way of his mayoral campaign, and Strange injects his first dose. And that is when we get our first listen to this series' Two-Face.
I will prescribe you a treatment we've been developing at the asylum. It should help you to keep your head clear when your temper flares up.
If it prevents further public incidents, that's all I can ask for. I can't let my anger affect my mayoral campaign.
I'd like to administer some now if you don't mind. I'll provide you with an ample supply to last you until our next sessions.
Of course. Go ahead.
There. Tell me, Mr. Dent, how do you feel? Mr. Dent?
Ours not here, Doc.
Then who am I speaking to?
I don't have a name. Yet.
Remarkable. It seems that the treatment did exactly as expected, and quicker than anticipated. I've successfully separated the good and evil parts of your mind.
Is that right? I think all you've done is set me loose. I've just been waiting for a chance to get out.
Mr. Dent, please put down that letter opener.
That's right, Doc. Beg for your life. For all the good it will.
What's going on?
It seems the treatment worked, Mr. Dent. We will meet again in a week for our next session.
Harvey comes back to reality, confused, not recalling what has just happened. The video then cuts to footage that was found outside the home of a woman that was murdered on 222 Janice Lane. Behind the camera, we can clearly hear Two-Face speak.
Life is short. Over with the flip of a coin.
He stalks the woman before eventually breaking into the home and killing her off-screen.
Gotcha, bitch!
And the video ends. A question I had while watching this video for the first time was whether it all took place before or after Harvey became Two-Face. I believe that it takes place before, since we got the mention of Harvey's mayoral campaign, and for most of the interview, Harvey seems to be normal until given the treatment. As for the scene where he's stalking the woman, it's a little hard to say. Since we don't have an exact date on when this event takes place, I will assume that it is after he gets acid thrown in his face, but I can't be too sure at this time. We also have no mention of who this woman was at the time, and I don't see why a normal Harvey Dent would do such a thing, unless he had fully gone off the edge or if the treatment really affected him that badly. Getting back to Doctor Strange, it's like I said, I feel there is something much bigger at play here, and I feel that this series will have its own Protocol 10 at some point, but I just can't be sure of what it is at this time. The series only gets better from here. So let's keep moving to our next video.
Hello and welcome to Arkham Asylum. There are many patients here of different shapes and sizes. When interacting with certain patients, you must keep these guidelines in mind. We will now tell you the guidelines for interacting with patient number 061940.
This video begins with instructions for employees at Arkham Asylum, specifically guidelines for interacting with patient 061940. We are told that when interacting with this patient, we should under no circumstances provoke or antagonize the patient or discuss personal topics, as the safety of the employees is most important at Arkham Asylum. We are also told to take inventory of the room and make sure that there are no extra items that the patient can use. And finally, we are told to never open the cell, even if it appears to be empty. This is because the patient the video is referring to is Clayface, an indestructible monster with the ability to shapeshift. Over the years, Clayface has had numerous incarnations in the Batman comics, with a few different backstories as well. This series focuses on the original, however, that being Basil Karlo, a former actor who went mad after he was fired from a film that he was supposed to star in. The film was a monster movie known as The Terror, and the role Basil was supposed to play was that of the film's monster, known as Clayface. Donning the Clayface costume, he began to kill his fellow cast members, their deaths coinciding with those in the film's script. But he is eventually defeated by Batman, and it appears that in this universe he was sentenced to Arkham Asylum. Doctor Strange says that he will use Basil for further experimentation of the formula developed by Dr. Kirk Langstrom. Throughout the video, we see photographs taken from this process, and we hear Strange's notes all the way from March 14th to March 20th. On March 14th, 1993, the formula was injected into Basil's blood, and in the 2 hours that followed, Basil began to vomit violently, almost painfully. On March 15th, Basil began losing his hair, and his skin began to droop and go extremely pale. His screams rang throughout the asylum. March 16th comes around, and Basil's condition continues to degrade. As Strange describes it, Basil has begun seemingly to decompose while still being alive. His skin has begun falling off in places, leaving his skeleton visible in many areas. As painful as this should be, Basil has stopped screaming entirely. When checking in on the patient the next day, Strange finds that Basil has completely dissolved. All that remains of Basil is a stinking pile of flesh and bone that somehow seems to be moving. On March 18th, the pile of decayed human matter begins to take form, developing basic facial features like eyes and a mouth. It continues to gather strength, and on the 19th, the substance begins to form itself even more, holding a humanoid shape. It has also begun producing sounds not too far off from a human, although it can't speak fully. Strange recounts that he saw a faint hint of the substance attempting to mimic his own facial features and skin tone. On March 20th, a strange and violent event occurs.
March 20th, 1993. We thought we had misplaced the subject today. It was only through my keen eye that we realized there was an extra chair in the room. As one of my employees approached it, it suddenly shifted back to a humanoid shape and grabbed the staff member. What happened then was what I can only describe as monstrous. Its touch seemed acidic, burning and dissolving my employee. It then absorbed his mass into its own.
While looking into the cell, the scientists saw nothing. The holding cell was empty, or at least they thought. Strange sent employees into the cell to investigate before he realized that there seemed to be an extra chair inside the room. When an employee approached the chair, it shifted back into its humanoid form and grabbed the staff member. Upon being grabbed, the staff member began to dissolve, melting in an agonizing pain as they were absorbed into the creature's form. Upon doing this, the creature developed more human-like features, making it stronger and more dangerous. And on March 21st, the creature manages to escape its containment. Seeing as how it can now shift into a human being, locating the creature has proved to be extremely difficult. We learned that its escape was made possible by transforming into the form of Doctor Strange and manipulating an Arkham employee to let it out. Strange laughs as he says that the creature could be anywhere, posing as anyone. After this, we get some security footage taken from the Gotham suburbs, as well as Gotham City antiques, days after the creature escaped. We can see it posing as different people and objects before we slowly zoom in on a TV that smiles in another pretty goofy looking edit, and the video ends. This is another one of my personal favorites from the series. I love the concept of a shapeshifter running loose in Gotham. It's very creepy and decently well realized here. The gradual descent of Basil Karlo is also pretty disturbing. Way to make one of the more silly Batman villains into something that's actually pretty terrifying to think about. As for the overall story, this video didn't give us too much besides the dates of the testing, which will help when we put our timeline together later on. I want to keep moving though, because the next tape centers around one of my favorite Batman villains, Scarecrow. Once again, we begin with audio, but rather than an audio made to educate new employees, we are given an audio made to brief new patients at Arkham Asylum. We are told that the doctors have our best interests at heart, and while the environment seems strange, we will feel right at home before long.
You won't be afraid for long.
The video then transitions to an audio recording taken from April 1st, 1993, recorded by Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow.
April Fools. How fitting. Today's experiment will further my research into fear responses from the patients here. Today's volunteer is Gary. How are you feeling today, Gary?
Much better, Dr. Crane.
That's wonderful to hear.
He is recording a session with an inmate simply known as Gary. His reason for recording this is to, of course, study the fear responses of his patient. He starts by asking Gary what he knows about fear. Gary is confused by the question, but Crane tells him not to worry. He says that he will educate him.
What has been your personal experience with fear?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Dr. Crane.
That's all right, Gary. Let me educate you. In my experience here at Arkham, fear is power. It ranks higher than you, higher than me, even higher than Warden Strange. Fear doesn't care who you are. It is a driving force of the psyche, of nature even. I can see by your silence that you're still unsure of my meaning. In my experimentation, Gary, I have found that fear is a pathway to places that the mind cannot even comprehend. Another dimension, a place of constant dread and terror. This is what I've been trying to access, and you, my friend, will be instrumental in aiding that today.
Crane tells Gary that he is a crucial component to unlocking this new pathway in the mind, as he pulls out his mask.
What is the mask for?
Oh, you'll see, Gary. All I need you to do right now is sit back and breathe deeply.
No, I don't want to. I'm scared.
Good. That means we're already halfway there. Now, just breathe.
Crane unleashes his fear toxin, and we are shown some strange footage taken from Dr. Crane's office. And when I say strange, I mean we see footage taken from Gary's point of view, placed in the back rooms, as well as footage of Crane himself. I gotta say that I would have much preferred some original footage rather than some backrooms footage, but it does fit the aesthetic well enough. And I really like Scarecrow's design as well. The whole Plague Doctor look is unique, and I applaud them for doing something different. As for how we are actually getting the footage from Gary's point of view, I honestly have no idea. It could be some kind of dream visualizer, but we don't even have that technology now in 2024. And this series takes place in the 90s. It's a little confusing, but it is fun, and I mean, this is Batman we're talking about. Advanced tech is scattered all throughout this universe. Anyways, the video ends with a news report given by Vicky Vale about a doctor at Arkham who was arrested for gross misconduct and malpractice. This is obviously Jonathan Crane. When police found Gary, he was hysterical in his cell. The police tried to question him, but they only got the ramblings of a madman, struck with intense fear. The police reported that from what they could make out, it seems that Crane had sent him straight to hell. Whether that is true or just the ramblings of a madman is still yet to be determined by the police. This is where the video ends. It's nice to see my favorite Batman villain show up in the series, even if I think the visuals could have done a better job. The voice acting more than makes up for it in my opinion. I really like it. We didn't get much story from this video either. Just some dates, much like the previous tape, that keep us moving in a steady direction. If you are wanting a little bit more story though, don't worry. The next tape has some new developments that moves the story into a unique and terrifying direction.
The following footage is property of the MOPA. Any unauthorized viewing of this footage will result in immediate arrest and interrogation.
Rather than beginning with an audio recording, we begin with some confidential MOPA footage. The MOPA, as we learn later on, is a mysterious organization working in Gotham City that is original to this series. At this time, we don't even know what MOPA stands for, but we do know that they have some kind of authority, as we are told that any unauthorized viewing of the following tape will result in immediate arrest and interrogation. The video then cuts to an interview with a person labeled Subject 0103, who we quickly learn to be Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce Wayne's butler. And through some more dialogue, we learn that the person conducting the interview is none other than Jim Gordon. When asked about why he has come for the interview, Alfred states that he has kept a secret for his employer Bruce Wayne for some time now. The secret is that Bruce Wayne is the Batman. Jim isn't as shocked by the news as Alfred expected, and he clarifies that it actually makes a lot of sense, Bruce Wayne being a billionaire and all. Alfred states that sharing this information feels like a betrayal, as when Bruce began his journey as the Caped Crusader, he was sworn into secrecy. So why is he sharing this information now? What event could have been so bad that prompted Alfred to break this oath to Bruce? Alfred begins to give Jim his reasoning when the video cuts to what the video labels as suit cam footage. I assumed when first watching this video the footage came directly from the Batsuit, and my assumption was confirmed right after to be true when the footage shows us a phone. Over the footage we can hear a conversation between Batman and the Joker. Batman, whose voice I actually really like, asks Joker what he wants, and Joker replies by telling him, "We want you in here with us, the Madhouse, where you belong." Batman asks what will happen if he says no, and Joker responds by grabbing a girl he introduces as Pearl. Over the phone we can hear her crying as Joker states that she is a crybaby and only 19 years old.
"Joker, are you there? What do you want?"
"Well, hello, big boy. How's it hanging?"
"Don't waste any time, Joker. Just tell me what it is you want."
"Oh, I think you can guess. We want you in here with us. In the Madhouse where you belong."
And what if I say no?
"Well, we have so many friends here, sweetheart. Say hello to Pearl." Such a crybaby, isn't she? Pearl is 19 years old. She just started work in the kitchens here to earn some extra money. Pearl wants to be an artist, don't you, Pearl, darling? She just drew me a beautiful house. She drew it with this pencil. The one I've just sharpened. Open your eyes wide, Pearl. Beautiful blue.
Jesus, no!
This scene, and actually most of the video, is effectively an adaptation of the iconic Batman comic, Batman: Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth, one of the most visually disturbing Batman comics ever. The dialogue in this video is ripped straight from the comic, and I enjoyed seeing it adapted through some talented voice work. The video cuts back to the interview with Alfred, where he says the situation they currently find themselves in started with the Joker. Jim replies by saying this makes sense, as the rumor has been going around that the Joker isn't even human. Jim says that he personally doesn't subscribe to this theory, and Alfred replies by saying that if this is the case, Jim has never truly known the Joker. When asked about what happens next, the video cuts again to footage taken from Batman's suit cam. The video itself is extremely blurry, but the dialogue cuts through once again. Rather than an exchange between Batman and the Joker, we get dialogue from Clayface. That is once again ripped straight from a serious house on serious Earth. Clayface tells Batman his skin is sick, that it is rotten and seeping. He approaches Batman, saying that he wants to share his disease. Batman then kicks Clayface's leg, giving him some time to get away. And the video transitions back to the interview with Alfred briefly, where Jim discusses Clayface and his rampage through Gotham after his transformation.
Clayface, aka Basil Carlo. After his transformation and a rampage through Gotham, he was apprehended and locked up in Arkham, correct?
Indeed.
Am I also correct that his touch is deadly to normal humans?
That is correct. Carlo's transformation left him capable of fully dissolving people. Poor blighers.
And what happened after that?
Then we are shown more suit cam footage. This time, Batman has a run-in with Scarecrow, who seems to be reciting a poem. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the Raven, nevermore. This is a line from Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, quite possibly the most famous poem ever written. But why is it here? The poem itself has had a few interpretations over the years, and for those of you who don't know the story, I'll give you a brief summary. During a dark night in December, the narrator of the poem is alone mourning the loss of their maiden, Lenore, when they hear a tapping at their window. Upon opening it, a raven flies into the narrator's home and perches itself on a statue of Athena, the goddess of wisdom. The narrator unnaturally asks the raven its name, and the raven replies with, nevermore. The narrator continues to ask the raven questions, and the raven always gives the same answer, nevermore. By the end of the poem, the narrator goes mad after asking the raven if he will ever see his maiden Lenore again in the afterlife, to which the raven replies, nevermore. In the line spoken by Scarecrow, the narrator is essentially telling the raven to leave him, of which the raven of course replies with, nevermore. So why is Scarecrow quoting the raven? It could be something as simple as Scarecrow literally having crow in his name, but even then, ravens and crows are different, although they both belong into the same family of birds. My interpretation of the poem, and I could be wrong about this since I'm not very good with poetry, is that the raven represents the narrator's grief, and how it refuses to leave them. Knowing what my interpretation of the original story is, I think the reason for it being in this Batman story is possibly to convey Batman's grief over losing his parents, and how it is a driving force for everything he does. And with how focused this particular video is on Batman, I think it is safe to say that this is what the creators were trying to get at. Anyways, we cut back to the interview, and Jim is discussing Jonathan Crane. He asks Alfred what he thinks about the rumors that have been spreading of Crane having opened a portal to another dimension, accessed through fear. Alfred says that he doesn't believe them, but from what we saw in the Scarecrow video, it seems to be a possibility, and would explain how Crane got this footage in the first place. After this, Alfred tells Jim that Bruce battled Killer Croc in the Asylum, and we see this through some more suit cam footage. Alfred says that that is all the footage Bruce would allow him to see before he deleted the rest, and ever since that incident, Bruce had been changed. He had become increasingly more violent and began to obsess over an idea. He began to use quote-unquote enhancements to modify himself to be a more capable hero. These enhancements used the different traits from all of the villains he had fought up until this point, but they all came with a cost that Bruce did not foresee. Alfred states that he became the thing that he had spent so many years fighting, a monster. Jim thanks Alfred for this information on behalf of the MOPA, and Alfred gets confused, seeing as how the MOPA isn't an established organization, and the interview itself is being conducted in a GCPD building. Jim speaks to someone over the radio and tells them to move Alfred to a secure holding cell. Alfred is taken off guard by this, but Jim tells him that it's all for his own safety.
Well, this has all been very helpful. I thank you for your time, Mr. Pennyworth, as does the MOPA.
MOP... what? I thought this was a GCPD building.
Not important. This is Gordon. Please move Mr. Pennyworth to a secure holding cell.
Now hold on just a minute.
Nothing to worry about. It's for your own safety.
Bullshit. Stay back. Stay back.
The video cuts to an emergency transmission, being broadcasted by Jim Gordon to the director of the MOPA, who is still unknown to us at this time.
Incoming emergency transmission from MOPA officer number 0011. Special attention, MOPA director, identification number 0002. Emergency transmission will now begin.
Director, this is Gordon with an emergency status report. I have reason to believe the target will be active again soon. All factors point to the 27th. Our facility here has been compromised. If you don't hear from me in the next 48 hours, assume the worst. We have successfully remained undercover for the last 2 months, but we think that the target has located us. 6 of us are dead, and I got separated from the rest. I could be the only one left. I hope this transmission aids in the mission. If nothing else, we now know that even 40 of us isn't enough to stop him. Wait, what's that? No, no, no!
Connection severed. End emergency transmission.
Jim states that with the information he has gathered, the target will be active soon, specifically on the 27th of whatever month this recording is taking place. At this point, we can assume that the target is Batman himself. Gordon states that the facility has been compromised, and he could be dead within the next 48 hours. Gunshots can be heard as Jim tells the director that the target has found them and has killed 6 of their members. The video cuts, and through some extremely distorted footage, we can see Batman crawl towards the camera before the video ends. This video gave us a lot more story focus while also bringing Batman himself into the mix of things. Although it seems like Batman isn't the hero in this story, whatever Bruce did to himself has changed him into a ruthless monster who may have taken the lives of many people, which for Batman is a big deal, seeing as how his whole moral compass is built on the idea of not killing. So the possibility of him killing 6 innocent people is terrifying. The story is still difficult to put together fully at this moment, but from where the video leaves us, we know that Batman will be active on the 27th of a month that was not conveyed to us. We also get the introduction of the MOPA, a mysterious faction working within Gotham City to try and track down this new monstrous Batman. But Batman has survived some of the most grueling scenarios ever, and with these enhancements, he is even stronger and has no morals to slow him down. So the question becomes, how do you kill an unkillable force? Quite the riddle. Am I right? Our next tape focuses on Edward Nygma, the Riddler, and begins with an advertisement for his company, Nygmatech. Of course, a callback to everyone's favorite Batman movie, Batman Forever. God, that movie is good. The advertisement shows off the progress Nigmatech has made in their pursuit of virtual reality technology. Completely ripping off Microsoft, they have created the Nigma Box. With this new game system, we are told that we can dive into new worlds and the whole family can enjoy. Oh yeah, and just to be thorough, I tried calling the number shown in the ad, and it does nothing. It's just a fake number. Obviously, this company's just a front for Nigma's schemes, and we'll see what he's been up to in just a second, but before that, the series shows off its new intro. Which if you thought my intro was long, I mean, you're still right, but this one is longer. I checked, and honestly, I like it. It sets the mood well, although it probably could have been shortened down just a little bit, but then again, I'm not one to talk. One thing I thought was really cool is how we get our first good look at this universe's Batman. It is a very creepy image, and it almost makes it look like Bruce isn't even human anymore. A terrifying possibility for the residents of Gotham. After the intro finishes, we cut to an interview with the Riddler that is taking place on September 12th, 1994. The interview is being conducted by Dr. Jeremiah Arkham, who, yes, is a relative of Amadeus Arkham, the founder of Arkham Asylum, and Jeremiah's uncle. Jeremiah was originally created in 1992, showing up in Batman Shadow of the Bat as the director of Arkham Asylum. I can't get too deep into it because I haven't read the comic for myself, but it seems that through a series of events that take place at Arkham, Jeremiah would eventually become the second Black Mask after Roman Sionis, who was shot in the head by Catwoman. I would assume that at this point in the series, Jeremiah is still the director of Arkham Asylum, and will probably begin his transformation into Black Mask later on. Jeremiah explains that Nigma has been in a catatonic state ever since an event that took place in August of 1992. This event occurred during his last run-in with Batman. Nigma was apparently caught performing some kind of ritual, and he claimed he was seeking higher knowledge that was forbidden and beyond understanding. Since then, he has not spoken a word or moved his body, but this is the Riddler we are talking about. He must have had a plan. Turns out, through some experimentation, the doctors at Arkham Asylum have discovered that Nigma can communicate through technology, such as the radio that is placed on the desk in front of him. Jeremiah turns on the radio and begins the interview by asking Nigma how he is doing. Nigma actually responds through the radio and says that he has been better. Understandable, given his current situation.
Hello, Dr. Arkham.
Wonderful, Edward. Thank you kindly for engaging with me in conversation today. How are you?
I've been better.
I'm sure, given your current state. Apologies. That seems insensitive. Tell me, in your own words, what happened that day 2 years ago?
Jeremiah then goes on to ask what happened on that day 2 years ago that left Nigma in his current predicament. Nigma warns Jeremiah, saying that questions were what got him into this situation. He then asks Jeremiah a riddle. What has no teeth but gnaws? What has no bells but rings out? I believe the answer to this riddle is a question, but let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below. Jeremiah, instead of answering the riddle, says he is going to give Nigma a set of true or false questions to answer.
Let's try a different route, Edward. I'm going to present a series of statements. You don't have to state anything except true or false.
False.
Very funny.
True.
Jeremiah first asks if Nigma's name is Edward Nashton, which Nigma answers as true. He then asks if Nigma uses the alias known as the Riddler, which Nigma also answers as true. Before Jeremiah can ask the third question, however, Nigma interrupts him with one word: Carcosa.
You know?
Carcosa.
What?
Carcosa. Have you ever heard of it?
I cannot say that I have.
There was a play written ages ago. No one is quite sure when or where it is from. No one knows who authored it. One of its constants is the mention of a place, Carcosa, the ultimate riddle.
This is the point where all the true detective watchers are currently pointing at their screen. Don't worry, I did the same thing. as anyone who has watched that show will probably remember the mention of Carcosa multiple times, along with the King in Yellow. I'm getting a little ahead of myself though. So for those who don't know, I'll do my best to explain briefly. In the video, Riddler describes Carcosa as being an unknown place mentioned in a play written long ago by an unknown author. He wanted to be the one to figure out what Carcosa actually was, because he saw it as the ultimate riddle, and after searching far and wide, he eventually found the play and read it front to back, finding the answer he had been searching for. When questioned about his statement, the Riddler says that he has always loved the color green, but in recent times, especially after his incident, he has been drawn towards the color yellow, a color the Riddler proclaims he basks in. When asked about who he is, Riddler says that he is the unspeakable one, the one who is not to be named, and that he is the corpse of God incarnate. This is all a reference to a series of short stories written by Robert W. Chambers all the way back in 1895. The book these stories were gathered in was titled The King in Yellow, and is one of the earliest pieces of writing to display cosmic horror, predating H.P. Lovecraft. The first few stories within the collection are loosely connected around the idea of a play that makes each person who reads it lose their minds, and that is the most bare-bones description I can give. Talking about The King in Yellow is tough, because it's a book containing a series of books surrounding a play called The King in Yellow within those stories, as well as there being a decent number of interpretations and adaptations over the years, like the before-mentioned True Detective, all dealing with the mentions of a mysterious place known as Carcosa, and the even more mysterious King in Yellow, an entity that can only be described as indescribable. It seems that what happens in all these stories has happened to Riddler, and through coming into contact with the King in Yellow, he has landed himself into a catatonic state. He says that the King in Yellow is returning, and will take Gotham with Enigma as his herald. Jeremiah, thrown off by this, ends the session, to which Enigma responds,
"Nothing ever ends."
The video ends, however, with an ad for Nigmatech once again, but it is all distorted, and the narrator seems to be reciting a line from The King in Yellow. It reads, "Strange is the night where black stars rise, and strange moons circle through the skies, but stranger still is lost Carcosa. This is the thing that troubles me, for I cannot forget Carcosa, where black stars hang in the heavens, where the shadows of men's thoughts lengthen in the afternoon, when the twin suns sink into the lake of Holly. I pray God will curse the writer as the writer has cursed the world with its beautiful, stupendous creation, terrible in its simplicity, irresistible in its truth. A world which now trembles before the King in Yellow." And that is where the video ends. So it seems like we are getting some cosmic horror into the series as well. Whether the Riddler actually found the King in Yellow is debatable, but not entirely impossible. I don't think it is in his character to lie about such a thing, seeing as how his whole character is built around finding the truths to mysteries. As an enjoyer of cosmic horror, I enjoyed this video quite a bit, and I can't wait to see more of it in the series moving forward. Moving back to what our timeline looks like, it seems that we are now in the year of 1994, so the series seems to be moving at a pretty linear structure as far as we can tell. We only have 2 videos left to analyze, so I say we keep moving. The next video of the series focuses on one of Batman's darkest characters. It starts off with the series' signature jingle, but this intro is slightly different in a way that is hard to catch. I didn't mention it until now, but throughout the series, the videos have always started with the message, "Welcome to Arkham Asylum," but after the Halloween special that contained Alfred's interview, the videos have started with "Welcome to Arkham Manor." This is a small detail that is easy to miss, but I do have a theory on why the creators did this, but it involves the timeline later on in the video, so we'll get back to it soon. After this brief intro, we are greeted with an ad for Professor Pig's Pizzaganza. Reminds me of another pizza establishment in a horror series. I can't remember the name though. Anyways, the ad tells us everything you would expect to hear from an ad for a pizzeria. The fun never stops and the food is to die for. Now, for those who don't actually know a whole lot about Professor Pig as a character, as he is a little bit more obscure in the Batman mythos, I will briefly explain why this ad is a huge red flag. Professor Pig, also known as Laszlo Valentin, has a mysterious backstory. From what we know, he worked as a chemist for a government agency known as Spiral. During his time working for Spiral, he would experiment with neurotoxins and chemical weapons, eventually creating his own, which was designed to inflict Alzheimer's into those who were infected with it. Through his work, he was eventually exposed to this neurotoxin, but rather than giving him the symptoms of an Alzheimer's patient, it sent him into a schizophrenic downfall, and gave him the obsession of making people perfect. Eventually, he would make his way to Gotham City, kidnapping its citizens and using brutal surgical methods to change those people into what he refers to as Dolatrons. Lobotomy, gender realignment, and forcing his victims to permanently have their face attached to a doll mask are just a few of the things this guy has in his arsenal. So, yeah, I think it is safe to say that this pizza establishment is nothing more than a front for him to conduct his grotesque experiments. After the ad, we cut to an audio cassette tape. The person speaking is addressing someone named William. A little on the nose, but okay. I assume that the person speaking is Professor Pig himself, as he says that opening the pizzeria while being a dream come true has cost too many lives. He says that to survive what's coming for him, he needs to adapt. He says that he will rely on Professor Pig one last time, that he will fully become him, and that no matter what happens, he will always be watching over William, and that he loves him.
To survive what's coming for me, I need to adapt. I'll be different, changed. But know this, William. I will always be watching over you, even if you cannot see me. I just won't look like myself. In order to survive, I'm going to have to rely on Professor Pig one last time. It will cost me my humanity, my autonomy. I must become him. It's the only way for me to avoid being found. I love you. I always will. Remember that no matter what happens.
After this message, we see a news report that details the disappearance of Laszlo and the closing of Professor Pig's Pizzaganza. He has been missing for a total of 3 years at this point, and the police have made the decision to close down the pizza chain due to one of the animatronics acting strange, causing a number of accidents for the customers. One of these accidents being the death of a young boy who lost his arm due to one of the malfunctioning animatronics. The newscast ends, and I gotta say, this video leaves me a little confused. First of all, it seems that this universe's Professor Pig is a little different from the one in the comics. He opened a pizza chain with a partner named William, who we still have no knowledge of at this time. He most likely carried out the murders in these establishments, eventually coming close to getting caught. And with the recent news of Batman becoming more deranged, it seems he somehow merged himself with one of his animatronic creations to escape the authorities and Batman, or to possibly make himself stronger. The only thing is that he's been missing for a total of 3 years. So has Batman been this deranged for 3 whole years now? It is an odd video that doesn't really make sense with the current context we have. The next tape isn't much better in that regard, but it is the last one we have to cover, so let's go ahead and finish the series. Oh yeah, quick editor side note here from the future. The creator has uploaded a new video in the series. I'm not going to be covering that here because it wasn't properly written into the script, and I already have my timeline finished out, so I would just recommend going and checking it out on your own to show the creator some love for this series. Thanks, guys. Our next video, and the last one that I will be covering, revolves around Poison Ivy, another iconic Batman villain. It starts us off with a training tape for the Martha Wayne Botanical Garden. We are told that as an employee of the Bioscience Division, we will be observing and reporting on the garden's new genetically modified plants. We are told that we need to keep a few things in mind while working here though. Our first instruction is to keep an open line of communication with our superiors at all times. Our second instruction is to follow the instructions as perfectly as possible, as to not stir up confusion among our colleagues. Our third instruction is to keep our equipment, workspace, and ourselves as sanitized as possible, because these genetically modified plants could carry adverse effects to those who are working around them. Our fourth instruction is to
don't lie to Mr. Wayne.
Then, after another updated intro, an audio recording of Dr. Pamela Lillian Isley, also known as Poison Ivy, begins. She is speaking to someone named Harley, most likely Harley Quinn, another Batman villain with origins to Arkham Asylum. It seems that she hasn't gone through her transformation into the Joker's girlfriend just yet, however. However, it would appear that this tape was taken from the Arkham Manor archives rather than from the Asylum. It is also dated to take place on November 7th, 1994. Pamela tells Harley she doesn't know why she is leaving this message, but she is hoping that it will make certain events clearer for her friend. We learn through the dialogue that Pamela knew Harley all the way back in college, and that they haven't talked for some time. She also brings up Jeremiah, saying that she heard the news of him helping Harley get her job at Arkham Manor. Pamela says that she is leaving this tape for Harley because she trusts her, and knows that she won't think Pamela is crazy for what she is about to say. In the following segment, Pamela describes how she has always loved plants, reminiscing about how she would always feel a connection to them, especially when they were dying. As she grew up, she learned more and more about plant life and how they communicate with each other. She said that she was so curious about how they did such a thing, that she would put her ear up against the tree and listen to their conversations. She was obviously obsessed, but not in a way that was hurting anyone at the time. She became a bio undergrad, and everyone praised her for her knowledge, but as she states, it wasn't enough. Plants all around Gotham were still dying due to the pollution of the factories that kept the city alive. In what Pamela describes as a mad rush of grief, she injected herself with plant hormones and other materials that made her able to hear the plants communicate more effectively. She had finally gotten what she wanted, but at a cost. Much like the Man-Bat video, Pamela has gained the ability to understand and hear the plants all around her, but she is living in a constant world of noise as her body continues to change drastically. Despite this, she is relatively calm, and says that she's not scared to go with them, and thinks that she will actually be able to do some good with her new abilities. The tape ends, and we get some quick flashes on screen of people with plants growing out of their heads, mixed in with the news reports detailing the story of a man who discovered he had a plant growing inside of his stomach. The video ends with a message that says, "Don't cross the Witch of Gotham." It seems that Poison Ivy is making quick work with her new abilities, possibly infecting people with her powers, causing plants to overtake people's bodies. And that is where the Arkham tapes conclude their story at this point in time. So that was a decent amount to cover, but how do these tapes all fit in with each other? Because as much as you could look at this series as an anthology, there is a clear timeline to it, and I'm interested in putting it together. So let's go ahead and dive in. So with all the timelines I do, I like to start off by saying you're going to need to take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt, as these details could be given new context later on in the series as it continues. But unlike most of the analog horror series out there, this one isn't too hard to piece together, as it pretty much moves in a linear timeline, giving us years to follow and small details to point us in the right direction. I am also going to tackle this timeline in a way that assumes most of you know the basic lore of these characters and locations. Things like going through Batman and Joker's backstory are irrelevant, because these are things people already know. I am mainly going to focus on the events that take place within the tapes themselves and the events surrounding them. So with that being said, I believe the first event of the series actually isn't shown to us in the tapes. This first event takes place in August of 1992, where from what we are told in the Riddler interview, Edward Nygma performed a ritual in an attempt to reach the King in Yellow, a mysterious entity that I explained previously. Batman tried to stop him, but it was too late, and Nygma was left in a catatonic state, only being able to speak through technology. He was imprisoned in Arkham Asylum, where the doctors continued to monitor him in the following years. We will come back to him later. The next event, I believe, takes place in the first tape of the series. After the Joker has his first interview, he seems to break out of Arkham Asylum on October 21st, 1992, and murders Dr. Stephen Kellerman. This is the earliest date that we are given explicitly in the series, and knowing the events that follow, it makes sense that this would likely be one of the first events of the timeline. After this, I can only theorize that the Joker was later caught by Batman and thrown back into Arkham Asylum, as later we see him incite a riot at Arkham Manor. About a month later, on November 15th, Dr. Kirk Langstrom interviews Waylon Jones, aka Killer Croc, to gather some information about his unique blood that keeps him immune to most afflictions. Killer Croc was probably thrown into Arkham by Batman after he went on a killing spree in the Gotham sewers, which we saw in the found footage left by one of the victims. Dr. Kirk Langstrom, prior to the interview, had been experiencing signs of deafness, and with the permission of Hugo Strange, conducts his interview with Killer Croc, retrieving a sample of his blood. Going back to his lab at Wayne Tech, Dr. Langstrom begins to experiment with Croc's blood, creating a compound that mixes Croc's blood with that of a vampire bat. On December 30th, 1992, he began injecting the compound into his lab rat Dimitri, and on the next day of observation, Dimitri has improved his hearing, prompting Dr. Langstrom to go to Bruce Wayne, seeking the approval on human trials. Bruce declines, however, and on January 2nd, 1993, Dr. Langstrom injects himself with the compound, in an effort to convince Bruce. Isolating himself in the lab for days, he experiences the terrifying and painful transformation into the Man-Bat. And on January 15th, he loses himself completely, breaking out of the lab and entering a brutal killing spree on the streets of Gotham to satisfy his hunger. Shortly after this killing spree, he is caught by Batman and imprisoned inside Arkham Asylum. It is here that we get our first introduction of Hugo Strange and his mysterious plans. He states that he will work to remedy Dr. Langstrom's condition to bolster his reputation. This makes me wonder if he had all this planned out from the beginning. When he approved the meeting between Killer Croc and Dr. Langstrom, did he know what would happen? A bit of a stretch, but it's not too far-fetched. This leads us to the Two-Face tape. In this tape, we hear the interview between Harvey Dent and Hugo Strange conducted on February 22nd of 1993. Harvey comes to Hugo Strange, seeking help to remedy his growing anger issues. This gives Hugo Strange the opportunity to test a new treatment being developed at Arkham that is supposed to remedy these violent tendencies. Upon administering it, Harvey's evil side comes out, and just before he can kill Strange, he snaps back to reality, remembering almost nothing of what just happened. Hugo Strange ends their meeting there, and afterwards we get some found footage of Harvey murdering a woman in her home. Now, the question that still remains is whether Harvey has actually become Two-Face at this point in time. And honestly, it really could be either option. The next concrete date we are given in the series is March 13th, 1993, in the Clayface video. And if Harvey's interview with Strange took place on February 22nd, that could have been enough time for him to get his face melted, causing him to completely lose himself. Or he could still be a normal Harvey Dent, with murderous tendencies that took over, causing him to kill this innocent woman. And honestly, I think that's the much darker and more terrifying option. Moving to March 13th, we have the Clayface tape, where Hugo Strange is continuing to study the effects of the compound created by Kirk Langstrom, deconstructing and repurposing it. He begins testing this compound on Basil Carlo, who over the course of a few days experiences a horrifically painful transformation into Clayface. Once his transformation is complete, he escapes the lab on March 21st, going on a rampage through the suburbs of Gotham City. From events that come later, it can be assumed that Batman catches him and puts him back in Arkham. We move to April 1st, 1993, and Dr. Jonathan Crane, who will later be known as Scarecrow, is running experiments on patients in Arkham, all having to do with the subject of fear, all to increase the power of his fear toxin. In the tape, he experiments on an Arkham patient named Gary, who breathes in Crane's fear toxin, sending him into a panicked state of mind. We get a glimpse of what Gary was actually seeing from a camera that was found in Crane's office, and Gary seems to have been transported to another dimension. This theory of another dimension is brought up later, and what it suggests is that Crane's fear toxin, at least in this universe, is so powerful it has the ability to send those who breathe it in into another dimension where their fears become reality, which is super over the top, and I love it. It really is the only explanation for why we can see what Gary is seeing in this scene as well. Dang, that was a funny sentence. Soon after, Crane is arrested for his actions. Now after this, we come to the Halloween special for the series and our introduction to Batman. Now I have mentioned that this video is essentially an adaptation of A Serious House on Serious Earth, and this being the case could actually help us in figuring out exactly when Bruce entered Arkham Manor. In the comic, Joker starts his takeover of Arkham Manor on April 1st, and if you'll remember, that is the same day Jonathan Crane tests his fear toxin on Gary. I might be looking too far into it, but I think that this could be intentional. You might be asking then, why is Crane still in the asylum as Joker is taking over? How was he still able to conduct his interview with Gary? Wouldn't there be chaos? Well, let's look at what we know for sure. In the Scarecrow video, the most concrete date we are given is April 1st, 1993. This is the date that Jonathan Crane proclaims himself.
This is Dr. Jonathan Crane, head of research at Arkham Asylum. The date is April 1st, 1993.
And the next concrete date we are given is actually September 12th, 1994, as seen in the Riddler video. So what I think is happening here is that, yes, they are both taking place on April 1st, but in different years. Crane conducts his interview with Gary in 1993 and is arrested shortly after. I believe that after Crane's arrest, all the inmates in Arkham Asylum are transferred over to Arkham Manor over the course of a year. Which brings us to April 1st, 1994, a date that isn't given to us explicitly, but it is the date I believe Joker starts his takeover of Arkham Manor, and Batman goes in trying to stop him. That would explain why Crane was able to conduct his interview with Gary, and it also explains why he actually shows up in the Halloween special. It's because it is taking place in a completely different year, but on the same day. In a fight that presumably left him badly injured, Batman was changed forever after that night. Alfred can only speculate what the reason was, but this one night sent Bruce spiraling down a dark path. Bruce began to obsess over the idea of using the strengths of his foes to his advantage. Through what Alfred refers to as enhancements, Bruce changed himself into a monster unlike anything Gotham had seen. It is around this time Jim Gordon creates the MOPA, a secret organization working within Gotham dedicated to taking down the Batman. Alfred gives his testimony, thinking that he was giving it to the GCPD, and he is imprisoned for his own safety. After this, Batman infiltrates the MOPA facility where Gordon conducted the interview and ends up killing 6 officers and attacking Jim. We still do not know if Jim escaped the attack, but I will take the more optimistic route on this one and say that he is probably still alive. We jump forward to September 12th, 1994, and we get an interview with Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler, who is still in his catatonic state. The interview is conducted by Jeremiah Arkham, and within it, we get some information on what left Nygma in his current state. As described earlier, he sought to solve the mystery of Carcosa and the King in Yellow, eventually making contact with some otherworldly entity. Whether it was actually the King in Yellow is still up for debate, but this leads the series into some truly strange and expansive territory. Nygma says that the King in Yellow will return to destroy Gotham, with him as his herald. We don't know if this is the truth until we get more episodes. This leads us into the Professor Pig episode, This one is interesting because it doesn't actually give us any concrete dates for its events. In it, we learn that Laszlo Valentin, or Professor Pig, had established a pizza-focused restaurant chain similar to that of Chuck E. Cheese, but we are not given a date for its foundation. Although we are told in a news report that it has been around for years. With the lore of Professor Pig being a deranged serial killer, I think it is safe to assume that Laszlo started this business to kill more efficiently without getting caught. He started the business with someone named William, of whom he left an audio message for after his disappearance, which also doesn't have a confirmed date. In the message, Laszlo tells William that he is going into hiding in order to face what is coming for him. I would assume that he is running from this new extremely dangerous Batman. He does this by somehow merging with his pig animatronic at one of the restaurants and goes into hiding for 3 months. After his disappearance, the pizza chain is closed after a boy is brutally killed by one of the animatronics that rips off his arm. What all these events add up to in the story is unclear at this time, and I am still not sure if the child's death implies that Laszlo in animatronic form killed the kid or if it was actually just a malfunctioning animatronic. This video was just strange. The final video we have for the series consists of an audio tape that was found on the deceased body of a Wayne Tech phytologist. The audio tape features a recording of Dr. Lillian Pamela Isley, who has begun her transformation into Poison Ivy. The recording takes place on November 7th, 1994, and she is speaking to Harley Quinn, a newly hired employee at Arkham Manor and a close friend. In the audio recording, Isley describes her transformation into Poison Ivy and what it has done to her. After the audio tape finishes, we see images of Gotham residents with plants growing out of their skulls, suggesting that Poison Ivy has begun her dark descent into becoming one of Batman's greatest villains. And that's pretty much all I have for now. If I had to guess where we are going next, I would assume that Harley Quinn will make an appearance very soon, seeing as how she has just been hired at Arkham Manor, and will probably begin interviewing the Joker soon, which will cause her transformation to begin. Overall, I like this series. I think it serves as a nice little piece of analog horror to satisfy Batman fans. I'm hoping that it will gain the support it needs in order to up its production quality and tell its story, because I can tell that there's a real passion here, and I feel that that passion deserves to be rewarded. I think it's pretty neat. I want to see where it goes. Whew, alright, hello everybody. If I sound a little bit, I guess drained, it's because I'm currently recording this at like 12 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, so I figured I'd just do something productive and finish out this video. I hope that you all enjoyed this one. I thought it was kind of fun. And if you made it to this point in the video, thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate that. And I also want to just take this time to thank you guys for the incredible growth that this channel has experienced in the last few months. Like, we hit 7,000 subscribers and we're on the road to like 10,000, which is freaking bonkers to me. That is absolutely insane. And not only that, like, the views are like higher than that. It's like 100k views. Like, are you guys serious? Like, that's insane. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. I'm really and truly grateful. I do have, I guess not like bad news, but I guess just like an update for you guys. My life is about to get extremely busy. For those of you who don't know, I am still a student. I am in college, and my final year of college is starting up very soon. And from what it's looking like, all of my days between college and my day job are just going to be taken up with work. And I've noticed recently that while my mental health has been actually getting better, I have been struggling a little bit here and there. So if I want to keep myself feeling good, for like lack of better terms, I'm gonna need to just watch myself a little bit. I can't be stressing out about YouTube and my work and my school all at the same time. I will still be working on stuff behind the scenes, absolutely. That poll I did on the community tab was actually very successful, and I thank everybody who participated in that. It actually was some good feedback on what you guys want to see, so the next video will probably be the Gemini Home Entertainment video, and I will be working on that behind the scenes and taking my time with it to make sure it is as good as possible. As far as what comes next after that, we'll probably hit Marble Hornets at some point, and probably just some other stuff in between. I do have some other ideas, but like I said, I'm going to be extremely busy and I don't want to burn myself out, so just don't expect anything anytime soon, I guess. I mean, that's not saying a whole lot. I think my last video was uploaded like a few months ago or something like that, the Vita Carnus one. But you guys have been phenomenal. Like, honestly, you all have been so nice to me. You know, in the comments, everyone's just talking and sharing compliments and giving really constructive criticisms as well. And I really appreciate the criticisms too, because keep them coming, because I want to get better at this and I want to keep making good shit, basically. So yeah, just thank you all. Seriously, it feels really good to know that people actually enjoy the stuff that I make. And with that being said, I am very tired and I do have work tomorrow, so I'm going to go ahead and get off this computer and stop talking into this microphone and try to catch some Z's. Once again, one big and final thank you. I will see you guys when I see ya. Alright, take care. Bye-bye.